everybody. This is the Tuesday night fantasy cheat sheet presented by Going for Two Live on the YouTube, on everything Twitch, YouTube, Twitter. Going for Two Live. I am Mike. Drop the mic, FF, with my co-host. First, we got Zach at the Big Pulaski. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Mike. How about yourself?
Doing all right and ready to talk football. And then we also got Jordan. Jordan, how you doing tonight, my man?
I'm good, reeling a little bit from a couple of week one L's in fantasy, but I'm ready to talk about it.
All right, so I think we all are reeling a little bit. We're all degenerates, so we have so many leagues that we're never gonna go perfect. If we went perfect, I would be scared what's gonna happen the next week. So we're going to recap the end of the Monday Night Football week and jump into week 2 in our own unique way. So first off, let's get into a little bit of news. We all know about Dak Prescott, so we don't need to go too deep into that. We know he's going to be out. Stuff that got brought up that we found out more today. Elijah Mitchell is officially put on the IR and will be out 8 weeks with the knee injury. To go along with that, the 49ers signed Marlon Mack to their practice squad. First off, Zach, what do you think about the injury and overall to that backfield in general?
I'm one bringing it more specific into the Scott Fishbowl. My team feels like it just got kicked right in the nuts right off the back week 1. An ice pack won't do it for me. At this point, just neuter me because we're done here. Dak Prescott's out for a while. Elijah Mitchell's out for a while. Your boy's down bad. It's not good. I'm glad I don't have multiple shares of him in a lot of my money leagues, but these are the kind of week 1 injuries you don't want to see for any fantasy owner. Because suddenly, if you don't have a lot of RB depth or if you don't have a lot of QB depth in Superflex, what you were kind of projecting your season outlook to look like is suddenly a lot more grim. Jordan, what are your thoughts?
I only have one share of Elijah Mitchell, so I don't feel the pain as much. But as far as that backfield goes moving forward, San Francisco is going to be a mess. I think Deebo Samuel is going to probably get more carries out the backfield. Even Brandon Ayuk got a carry or two. I know everybody's going to run to pick up Jeff Wilson, but I'm not sure exactly how much he's going to lead the attack. So it's a cluster. The injuries just made waivers even that more tough to kind of decipher this week.
Yeah, for sure. So the next piece of information that I wanted to throw out there is TJ Watt will not need surgery and is expected to be out about 6 weeks. The other thing that happened today, and I know this player is not super fantasy relevant, but the only reason I want to bring him up is because this backfield is a conundrum for all fantasy owners. Ty Montgomery, who actually had a touchdown this weekend, was put on IR today by the New England Patriots. Looks like he re-aggravated an injury that he already had. News, no news, big news. Zach?
I liked a few of their running backs. For me, I was a guy that was high on Pierre Strong Jr. coming out of the draft this year.
Yep.
So from that standpoint, I'm excited by the potential of him getting more opportunities. Obviously, it's still a split bag field between Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. But hey, when they're resting both of them, now I'm excited to see what Pierre Strong can do. Is he going to get many reps? No, but there is more opportunity there in that regard.
For me, I think it I think maybe opens the door for the role that I thought Ramondre Stevenson would have before week 1, when everybody thought Ty Montgomery would just go away or he would be hurt before the season started. But obviously he caught a touchdown, rolled into the end zone or whatever. But this may be the role for Ramondre. This may be the opening that he needs to get that role that we all thought he would have to begin with.
All right, so the only thing I need to add is, Jordan, I hope you are right. Buddy, I hope you're right, because I've been pounding that Ramondre drum since March or April, and I was scared about how they used that running. I mean, it was just weird. I just have to bring one little thing up that has to do with the team in general. It was weird whenever I was watching the game on Red Zone, and they would pan over to the sideline, and you see Matt Patricia, and then 5 yards over here, you saw freaking Joe Judge, and it was like they were working against each other, but together at the same time. And it was a very odd looking offensive system in that way. But I hope Ramondre is the guy. But I also do agree with you, Zach. I wasn't as high on Pierre as some people were. But I do think this is that opening that if they do want to bring him in, this is that opening to get him in the door. That's how I see it.
I'll put it this way with Pierre real quick. It's a crime that he went to New England. He's never going to get
Hands
the
down.
opportunity.
Yep, hands down. That was like the worst. That was like one of the worst landing spots he could have ended up in, period.
And it reminds me of the backup tight end, the rookie for Baltimore.
Isaiah Likely.
Yeah. He was my tight end too in the draft, and it's just a crime that now he looked great in the preseason, but now he's buying Mark. Oh, he would look so great on so many other teams. Why do some of these teams have to take those sleeper rookies? I like.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get into our first major topic, I'm just going to do a quick recap of the game last night. So Denver Broncos lost to the Seattle Sea Chickens, the Seattle Seahawks, 17-16 in Russell Wilson's debut with the Broncos and reunion game up in Seattle. We know that Nathaniel Hackett, the head coach for the Denver Broncos, is getting some backlash because of going for the 64-yard field goal. I also think that he's getting backlash because some of the play calling that the team made in general down at the goal line you figure they had two fumbles within the 3-yard line. You had Melvin Gordon fumble the ball at the goal line. You had Javonte run into his own guy and fumble at the goal line. Javonte had, I think it was like 11 receptions or targets. Yep. Russell Wilson had 340 yards. Numbers-wise, Denver put up numbers. I know we talked about it pre-show. Sutton had a couple later. Judy had his long catch. But overall, really, really quick before we get into what we're actually going to talk about and what we think about the game, is there any other quick reaction about the Nathaniel Hackett situation at the end, Zach?
Wait, a first-year head coach with a QB that just transitioned teams in the offseason didn't have a great week one? Oh my God, let's freak out. Just like what everyone said in the fantasy community after week one concluded. Let's not overreact to week one, especially in this situation. Obviously, it didn't look good, but also, if he drills that 64-yarder, which it had the distance behind it from what I recall, if he hits that through the uprights, suddenly Hackett looks like a genius for milking that clock and kicking it there. Obviously, they didn't get the outcome they wanted, but hey, guess what? You can't get them all. So I'm not too worried about it. I have my own concerns, but I'll address those here shortly.
Yep, and I think we all have concerns in one way or another.
Absolutely. I don't fault him for, making that decision from trusting McManus. But at the same time, when you pay a quarterback like Russ the amount of money you paid him, you got to give him a chance to get 5 yards, I think it was. So yep. I was kind of disappointed in that. The clock management overall was kind of terrible leading up to them having to use the timeouts on the kneel down. I thought they could have handled that a little bit differently, even if they did try to go for the field goal. So obviously, it's his first game as a head coach. Russ's first game as the Broncos quarterback. Nothing to freak out about.
I guess.
I agree. I'm in the same boat. I 100% agree with Zach. Another game real quick. That's how I feel about the Giants game. If Barkley wouldn't have made that 2-point conversion, Dable would be getting drilled right now. But because Barkley made that 2-point conversion to win the game, the same situation. But week one is over, but we all have personal takeaways from the Monday Night Football game. And we're just going to jump over and start with Zach. Zach, I know you feel very highly contrite and very highly on this one. Go for it.
I've said it in previous weeks on this show. I've talked about it before. We talked about it with the Raiders offensive line and the concerns there with Derek Carr and his protection. No one ever talked about it in regards to Denver. And they didn't talk about it. I get it was a deal when he was with Seattle and he had no protection there and he was vulnerable to getting hurt time over time. Well, guess what? He left one team with a lot of good weapons at running back, wide receiver, and some respectable ones at tight end and a good defense to go to another team in the same situation. He doesn't have protection. And that's what I keep hammering home. This is not a good offensive line. This team is essentially every year prior to this year, Denver was what the Pittsburgh Steelers are in 2022. A shitty QB, a shitty offensive line, really good weapons, and a really good defense. Well, guess what? Now they got the quarterback, but they still don't have the protection. And obviously, Russ will be enough some weeks depending on who they're playing against. But my biggest concern and the reason why I've been out on Denver this whole offseason is the fact that in the AFC West, I do think they can upset some opponents in that division some weeks. However, there are a lot of really strong defensive lines and a lot of guys that I really like that D line compared to their O line. You've got Bosa, you've got Mack, you've got all these guys. And I'm like, man, how in the hell are they going to protect Russ? What are they going to line 7, 8? They line 10 guys on the offensive line? They might need to just to save Russ on some of those games. So, that's my biggest takeaway. Overall, not too concerned about Denver, but I'm not optimistic on their long-term season success due to that offensive line.
I can't really add much to that. I mean, when Seattle was getting the amount of pressure that they were getting, that's alarming. Like you mentioned, when you're in the same division with the Chargers and with the Raiders, even with Crosby and guys like that, they're going to get pressure on Russ. So, he threw for a lot of yards. The running backs ran pretty well, but I don't trust their prospects just for the division that they're in. They'll probably end up finishing last or third in the division, and that's just tough in itself.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Zach. There's not much more for me to add on that one. So since I don't have much more to add, because I completely agree that offensive line did not do much against a defensive line that I don't think is that great.
No.
Jamie asked, would you trade for Russ if Brady is your QB? No.
No.
I'm staying with Tom. I know he can maybe regress a little bit, but either way, I'm not, even if I have Russ, I'm not like Zach said, I'm not panicking yet. I'm keeping Russ. If I have Brady, I'm keeping Brady.
I would consider trading for Russ if I have Brady, if it's a dynasty, and I feel like my team has a lot of up and coming talent. Say it's a super flex, and I feel that next year or the year prior, I'll be just more stacked in regards to those guys having more experience under their belt with my other positions. Then I'd consider that. If I feel like I'm ready to contend right now, I trust Brady to put it down more. That you got to trust Brady. Every time anyone questions him, guess what he does? He produces. So just trust the process of the TB12 method.
So, Zach, I know how you feel about the offensive line in Denver in general. Jordan, how do you feel about Seattle?
So I was completely fading every aspect of this offense, except for, interestingly enough, Rashad Penny in drafts before the season started. And last night I was kind of it gave me some confidence that the passing game could be more productive than I thought it would be initially. Geno was 23 for 28, 100. He only threw for 195 yards, but I mean, when you complete that amount of passes, DK Metcalf had, I think, around 7 targets. Not a lot of air yards in it, so it's the first game for them as well, getting acclimated to a new season and stuff like that. They wanted to give Geno a lot of short routes and things of that nature, so maybe if he continues to show consistency, they'll kind of stretch the field a little bit more. But they were efficient, especially in the first half. Second half, Denver kind of shut things down. But the way that they were kind of clicking, they weren't that offense that I thought they would be struggling, especially in this game particularly. I thought they would struggle against Denver's defense, but they were moving up and down the field on them, like I said, particularly in the first half. And if they could continue to find ways to move the ball like that with Geno, and the running game was effective when they decided to run it, I think this offense could provide fantasy production even when I didn't think it could.
Yeah, so for my takeaway on the Seattle front, I do agree with you that Gino played what he needed to do. If they keep up what they are doing, they don't need Gino to be Justin Herbert, Mahomes, that they need him to be a little bit better than a game manager, and that's what he was. I was surprised how little Lockett was involved in the game, but I was also surprised on the good side. I'm not really a big DK guy, and DK stepped it up. DK did what he had to do. Gino was obviously zeroing in on DK Metcalf. But if that duo keeps working the way it did last night, Seattle could, like you're saying, Seattle could be better than we thought. And if that defense steps up, I mean, one thing that I saw in that defense, I mean, I play a decent amount of IDP. Cody Barton, the middle linebacker that is taking the spot for Bobby Wagner. No way he's going to be Bobby Wagner, but he's taking that spot. He was going all over the field. So that's where I stand on that. I think they could be better than we thought they were. But, Zach, what do you think about Seattle and what Jordan's saying? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just want Kenneth Walker back. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm ready to see him producing. Otherwise, I've got my eyes on Lockett and Metcalf. I mean, regardless of who's at QB, we've seen those guys produce even with Gino. Obviously, it's not a QB you really trust the consistent production from, but the talents of those two wide receivers specifically, you've got enough kind of basis to go off of where, hey, you feel like you can get a relatively consistent production point. And Gator, correct me in the chat, you said Ken Walker. I'm on.
Yeah.
Even my cat corrected you. We'll call him what we want.
Yeah, so speaking of the chat, we got everyone in here. We got Jamie, we got Gator, we got Kyle, we got Yeti. We even had Gerson in. How's it going, everyone? Trying to get all these watch everything at the same time. We're talking about Ken Walker. There's a Dortch conversation in there. So my takeaway on the game has to do with the tight end situation in Denver. I was in on Albert O coming into the season. Bye-bye. I don't know. And this partly has to do with Zach's point too. And I'm glad Zach had his takeaway first, because you had Albert O. He did have a decent, he was on, I'm looking at some advanced stats. On pass plays, he was in for 77% of pass plays. He did have 7 targets. And I get that the tight ends didn't have a lot, but this is why I think it's interesting. Andrew Beck, I don't know who the heck that guy is, but he had 7% of the snaps, 7% of targets. He had 3 targets. Eric Tomlinson had a target. Eric Salbert had a target. Tyree Cleveland had a target. Here's my point. Just like Zach said, they're gonna have to protect Russell a lot more. I think that's part of the reason they had there's parts of the game where they had three tight ends in at once. It's because they couldn't protect them. I don't think they're going to be able to protect them enough. I think they're just going to use everyone at the same time. It looked like Russell Wilson on certain third down conversions that you would think he's going to target Albert O was targeting Beck. This passing situation, I think, is Javonte, Melvin Gordon and Javonte on the ground, Javonte as the passing down running back. You have the guys outside. I love the fact that they used Hamler, Sutton, and Judy on the field at the same time. I was hoping to see that they did that decent amount, and they did. I just think unless you're in a super deep league, 16, 20-man league, or, obviously in Dynasty, you're going to keep them on your roster. But in redraft, home league, stuff like that, I am out on Albert O, and that's a takeaway I did not want to be bringing up on this Tuesday evening, but I am. What do you think, Zach?
I love to hear it. I'm glad you finally hopped off the Albert O God awful bandwagon. I've hated him. I've been out.
I know.
And I'm just waiting for Dulcich to come back too.
I
Guess
like
what?
Greg. I like Greg.
I know you do. I'm glad you do because, Beck isn't a slouch by
No.
any means. I mean, not a big name, household name by any means either. But, some of these guys who can block but also pass catch are going to prove to have a lot of value on a team like this. So the more they're on the field, the more opportunity there will be for fantasy production. They can block. Suddenly, maybe they're getting more routes too. And right now, Alberto scares me. It scared me to begin with because I thought it was a lot of hype without any sort of real proof. And as of right now, if you were high on him, I wouldn't sell him yet. I wouldn't jump off quite yet, Mike. I like to hear it because, we do this together every week and I've been out the whole time. But at the same time, I don't think you should jump ship yet because it's week 1. We can't overreact, and I don't want you to just commit to, selling your stock of them and it biting you in the butt because, week 2, suddenly we forget all about Mr.
I'm more
Beck.
I'm more out on him in redraft with the way rosters usually are in redraft compared
Yeah,
to
but you know what I mean.
definitely.
I don't want you to give up either way. Don't let Beck don't sink that ship quite yet. There's still some hope. Jordan, what are your thoughts though?
Yeah, I think, he was somebody that I wouldn't have mind grabbing during draft season in the later rounds. But after yesterday, I'm glad I didn't get any shares of him because they need tight ends to block, like obviously to help protect Russ. And then when Greg Dolchich comes back, he might be a better receiving tight end. So, with if Javonte Williams is going to get 12 targets every week, or the running backs are going to get 14 targets every week from Russ, and the receivers are going to get what they need to get, then it's not going to be much left for the tight ends on a weekly basis.
Yes, for sure. So just a reminder, everyone, please go subscribe to the YouTube channel, like and comment on the video. That helps us in the YouTube algorithm. But when we are sitting there on our couches being pretend fantasy GMs on our couch, we always end the week with plays that we regret. So, Zach, why don't you start us off with a start, sit, regret that you had this week?
There's so many ways it could have gone where I could have got the outcome I wanted. I was so close, yet so far away. Shout out to the Chicago Bears and some very underwhelming individual performances from guys I really love. Refused to overreact yet, especially with the monsoon on the field from a field that turns out it's a pool. It just holds water. It doesn't drain any of it. But I had Devonta Smith and Darnell Mooney in 2 of my 3 flex spots. And guess what? They combined for 1.8 points. And I lost by 5.66. I had David Montgomery, who scored 8 on the bench. I had Michael Carter, who scored 17. And, I had some other guys as well that got me 6. So I was so close. And if I played any one of them over any of the other combinations, I would have pulled it out. And I'm just, I wanted to play David over Darnell, but I was nervous about the rain and the fact that would affect maybe there's more fumbles and he's slipping around. I know rain usually tends to more of a ground game, but I got nervous there. Michael Carter, obviously, Breece Hall didn't look good in the preseason, but you still don't know how much of the workload's going towards him. Overall, just heart hurts. I wanted that week 1 win. I ended up splitting or going 500 across all my leagues, but I like to get off to a hot start, build that momentum early, and then start to be aggressive in my trades. And sadly, with close losses like that, in the end, it doesn't matter because if that's 0 in the win column and the 1 in the loss, it doesn't matter how close I was.
Yep, for sure. Jordan, do you have any comments or thoughts about Zach's situation real quick?
I feel for you, man. That's pretty much all I can say. We've all had our share of simple, so close yet so far away decisions that we had to make, things that you weren't sure about going into the matchup, and then somebody on your bench goes off. You didn't, in your case, you didn't even need that many points to win. So
Yeah.
I know that's
And
even more frustrating.
how am I supposed to expect Devonta Smith just giving me a solid goose egg, not giving me a damn thing?
Right.
Like, come
That's the
on
thing.
now.
I mean, that's the thing that I want to say. The goose egg, but also I would have played it the exact same way you did. It's not that you played it bad; it's just the outcome came out bad.
Right.
That's it.
And
Yeah, and
that's the game. That's the game that we play, I guess. For me, one I have made a ton of mistakes, but one one that sticks out is I had this is more so due to injury, but I had Elijah Mitchell in uh, over AJ Dillon. Obviously, Mitchell got hurt. Had a good game up to that point, but he got hurt. Dillon scored 20 points in the league. Elijah Mitchell finished with 4. I lost by 7. So that was one that kind of killed me. Um, I don't think I wouldn't have made this decision, but in another league, just starting Mike Davis and Kadarius Toney in the leagues that I had, that was just a foolish decision on my part overall. So I deserved the L's on that one. And one more, I lost by 3 points in the league. Now Tom Brady was my quarterback. I just needed Tom to give me just one 25-yard pass and not the interception, and I probably would have won the matchup. But he gave me 12 points. I ended up losing by 3, so that was disappointing.
it's tough when you overthink your lineup and you beat yourself. And that's where, for example, with mine, I played the lineup I trusted was my best approach. It just ended up unfavorably.
Right.
And I've been on your end as well. I get those Mike Davis ones where you see the logic in it. And I mean, we all are into fantasy football enough where you can draw those scenarios out. You see
Yep.
the clear logic. And then just also the even more blatantly what feels obvious afterwards outcome ends up happening, and you're like, oh, of course, like, why didn't I just see that? It's like,
Yeah.
but it hurts too the other way when suddenly you don't play him and he does produce on your bench. That's a tough one though. I mean, that Mitchell injury is concerning. I know I've been high on Dylan. Yeah, that touchdown alone would have been exactly what you needed.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Exactly. It hurt.
So before I get into my regret of the week, Jamie says buy low on Aaron Jones ? Box score was bad, but efficiency was great, averaging 9 yards of catch and 9 yards of rush. I am going to sit out on this question only because I have 2 Packer fans that I want to see unbiased opinions on. Zach, start off.
yes. Bye. Is it a buy low? I mean, I think the biggest headline was the wide receivers. So I mean, I don't know how much of a buy low it is on Jones or Dillon as of right now because I don't know if their market has really shifted. Plus, we've seen 4 week ones before from Green Bay, so I'm not concerned about it.
Yep.
And I don't think the price has really dropped. If Jones really doesn't put up much fantasy wise next week as well, then I would probably try and buy him at that price. But as of right now, I just don't think the market's shifting enough as of yet to really make it a good value move.
Yeah, absolutely. If somebody's willing to buy him low, if somebody's willing to sell him, I mean, for a low price, then definitely I would buy. But I don't think people do overreact to week 1 though, so we have to take that into consideration. But I would definitely be trying to see if somebody's disgruntled or whatever, and just to see what the price is at this point. But if he has another bad game, like you said, Zach, I definitely would be trying to buy him.
Yeah. So for my regret, and I agree with both of you, I don't think the price has dropped enough yet to be able to buy him low. But if you can, yeah, I mean, I have Aaron Jones on the team that I'm going to be talking about, but that is not my regret. But yeah, I mean, I'm not selling him at all. So, and this is a redraft league, 3 wide receiver, 2 flex. I went heavy wide receiver, so my running backs are a little on the weaker side. I wanted to preface saying that because you guys will understand. Because I have 3 wide receivers and both my flex are wideouts. So I have Aaron Jones, and I started Tony Pollard as my second running back. Lovely. It's PPR. 8 yards. He got me 6 points. But I had a guy named Kareem Hunt on the bench. And I was debating this between Kareem Hunt and Tony Pollard for a couple of days, going back and forth, knowing that I even thought about putting Kareem Hunt as one of my flexes. I should have, because I flexed. It was Hunter Renfrow is who I would have put him in instead of. Luckily, I kept Amon-Ra St. Brown in my lineup. But I just wish that I would have gone with my first gut feeling and kept Kareem Hunt in, even though he's on Jamie's Cleveland Browns. I do know. I mean, obviously, I thought Pollard was going to be more involved in the passing game. I thought Pollard was going to. I thought it was going to be Pollard more involved in the passing game because Tolbert wasn't playing, because Gallup is out, James Washington is still out. CeeDee Lamb's really the only wideout they had. That's a star. You have Schultz. I thought they were going to use Zeke and Pollard more in the ground game. I thought they were going to use him in the run. I thought they were going to use them two kind of like Dillon and Jones, where they'd have them both on the field and that kind of thing. But I was completely wrong. Zach, did I make the wrong move, or did it just play out wrong?
You're my boy. I'm sorry. You made the wrong move.
Okay.
I'm also not a Tony Pollard guy. So would have been easier for me because I think Tony Pollard is a pipe dream. Not buying it. 25-year-old RB2 on a team. The man's never going to see the light of day as an RB1. I'm not here for it, but it's tough. You can make the case for both. I guess my thought with it is it's about opportunity. Did you go in thinking the Cowboys would have the lead or be in a close game?
I thought they were going to be behind, and and have to throw the ball a little bit, and I thought he would get some of that.
Okay.
And I thought the Cleveland Carolina game was going to play more into Chubb's hands than his hands.
No, I mean, I get the Chubb over Hunt logic, and that's a very reasonable situation to come from. I know from the Pollard standpoint, I expected the Cowboys to be down. I wasn't really accounting for the PPR aspect as much with Pollard, so I get it there. I mean, that's a tough battle either way, where I can see where you're coming from. There's no win-win. Obviously, you pick the right side, you feel good about it, but you can't really if it's a Mike Davis, I mean, I might give you a harder time about it now, but
I deserve that.
No, but I mean, that's a tough one. I can see the logical case for both. What are your thoughts on it, Jordan?
Yeah, I would have definitely went with Kareem Hunt on in that choice right there. But I mean, I can't blame you for thinking about the way that you thought about it. I mean, definitely thought he would have did more than that at the very least. So we just one of those things we just learn from and move on, I guess.
Yeah. So, all right. Before we get into our next segment, we do got to pay some bills around here. Going for Two has a new sponsor. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em style contests versus other people for the shot at winning $150K or more. I mean, that's a lot of money, boys. Download the app, use our promo code, capital letters GF2, and get a deposit match up to $25. Choose a contest, select your player props, earn points, correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot to win the big money. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player props, over and unders, or individual player matchups across every major sport league, including NFL, NBA, which Jordan and Zach love, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Again, our promo code is GF2. Use it at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app to get your first deposit of up to $25 match. Make sure to check out No House Advantage and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but where you play at no house advantage. So now we've already gone over Monday Night Football. We've already gone over our regrets for the week. Zach, what else do you have to say?
Let's not overreact to week one. Let me start off by repeating that over and over and over. And I'm going to direct this more at a team I love dearly. I know Jordan loves them dearly as well. You may see their logo in the background around me as well. It's the Green Bay Packers. Let's not overreact. Last year we saw them underperform in week one, and guess what? It was even worse. Oh, and they were one of the top teams in the NFC. Obviously, they don't have a Mr. Devontae Adams. The young wide receivers didn't look good. And, it was just a brutal game overall. There's a lot of things to be questioning. But, I trust the defense. I trust the ground game. And at the same time, this wide receiver core is a core that can grow with time. So as of right now, I'm not going to be concerned. I know one thing, too, I want to emphasize with Christian Watson specifically is, I've been high on his hype train all off season. I know a lot of people have told me the man doesn't have hands, and I know he dropped that wide open one that would have been a touchdown. Guess what else they told me? They told me he had no route tree. Did you see the route to get open when he dropped it? Yes, I know he dropped it, but he left that guy in the dust. He just cut and gone. Bye. And there's a reason where if he would have caught it, it was just a gimme touchdown because he made that guy look silly. And that's where I want to emphasize the off the line breakaway there. I know I wasn't happy to see him drop that. I wanted to see him, prove everyone wrong from the route tree to the drops. But hey, young guys are known for that. That can be improved with time. And overall, I'm not worried about the Packers. Dylan, he had a touchdown still. I know they already alluded to it in the chat, but there was production in regards to yards per reception, yards per run with Jones. There's plenty of reason to believe in them going forward. They have some fairly favorable matchups in weeks to come. So I am still optimistic in regards to what these fantasy weapons can do on the Green Bay offense. And, week one, it's a tough bet. Jordan, as a fellow Packer fan, how are you feeling about it?
To quote a great philosopher, RELAX. Relax. Like I think we forget about last year, like you mentioned, the way that the Saints killed us in last year, and the way they bounced back from that. Team success aside, but just from a fantasy standpoint as well, like you don't expect Rodgers to have many bad games like that in a season. So he's going to figure it out with the receivers. They're going to get more time. Obviously, like Christian Watson was hurt for a lot of camp, so he's trying to get his time with Rodgers. I know Rodgers kind of went away from him after the drop for a long time. And it's going to take him and Romeo some time to kind of get his trust. But I think once they do, they have the potential to be a really solid core. We still have the old guys as well who also didn't perform well either. So the offense was just disastrous overall. Credit to Minnesota's defense. They played well. I don't expect that to continue. I expect Rodgers and the offense to figure it out. Obviously, not having Elgin Jenkins and David Bakhtiari also was a big problem in what went down. So you get those guys back healthy. You got to give Jones more touches. I know the game script wasn't necessarily in his favor from a running standpoint, but you got to find ways to get the running backs as many touches, especially if you're having problems with the young receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with both of you. I know we're saying this in general, like, don't overreact to week one. Packer fans, don't overreact to week one. I agree. Me and Zach do agree sometimes, and we don't agree sometimes. And this one, I do agree with Zach. I'm going to mention a little bit about the Packers in my take later. But overall, don't overreact on week one. Just like Jamie said, just because you won week one doesn't mean you're going to go 4-0, right, Jamie? I mean, that's what you get for being a Browns fan and having an elf on your field now. That's a whole nother story. So other than that, yeah, with your team specifically, I mean, Aaron was getting hammered. That offensive line looked a little weak. I think they can, clear some of that up. I do like how they use Dylan. I do agree with you, Jordan. They just need to Aaron Jones just needs to keep getting the rock. Like, keep giving him the rock. And I do agree with both of you about the wide receiver core. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it'll be fine. There's probably not going to be, 1,000-yard, 1,200-yard receiver, but there's going to be a bunch of 600, 700-yard guys, and you can win that way. And there's always different ways to win. Football players don't care about our fantasy rosters. They just care about putting W's up on the board. But from the Green Bay Packers, Jordan, what else do you have to say, my man?
So the theme, obviously, of this show is don't overreact to week one in any way, shape, or form. And part of that is watching out on the waiver wire over the next couple of days. Don't fall for these guys who put up numbers, but when you actually take a look at their stats, it's not justified that those things are sustainable. So I give a couple of examples. Taysom Hill, obviously now he's a tight end, which would provide good value for a tight end with the points that he put up. But you got to think about, he scored a touchdown. He had one long run. Now he's going to run the ball because that's how the Saints like to use him to get the ball in his hands. But he played 16 snaps. He only ran 4 routes. And he had 4 carries, and one of them was a very long run, and the other was for a touchdown, and he had 1 target. If I gave you any other tight ends with that kind of with that stat line or with those amount of snaps and plays played, you wouldn't want to pick those guys up. I know he scored the touchdown, but it's not sustainable over the long haul. Another example at tight end as well, O.J. Howard. O.J. Howard caught 2 touchdowns. He had 2 receptions for 38 yards and 2 scores. That was the only 2 targets he had. He only played 12 snaps in the entire game. All of this according to PFF. And he ran 6 routes. So he only played 12 snaps, ran 6 routes. He got a target, caught both of them for touchdowns. Obviously not sustainable. And when I saw him catch his first touchdown, me as a Brevin Jordan owner in a dynasty league I had, I was like, what's going on? Then I saw him catch another one. So then after the game, I went and looked at the snap count. So I'm like, he only played 12 snaps, 2 targets. So I felt a lot better when compared to Jordan, who played 40 snaps, ran 24 routes, and he also had 2 targets. They just didn't go for touchdowns. So that kind of made me feel a little better about that. So don't run to go pick up O.J. Howard. Don't run to go pick up Taysom Hill. Those numbers aren't sustainable. And one more guy I have is Derrick Henry's backup. You can pick him up as strictly a handcuff.
Dontrell Hilliard.
Yes, not to get that replicated production that he gave us this past week. Hilliard scored 2 touchdowns, but he only played 12 snaps. He had 3 targets, obviously, but he deserves to be added, but don't expect to get that type of production. Even when Henry's out, I don't think you can expect him to be a 2 touchdown guy per week.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the tight ends. It's funny with with O.J. Howard, it's a crime against Brevin Jordan. But I also look at it, and that's more so probably what the coach is trying to draw up there. Lovie Smith is trying to probably catch the defense sleeping. They're not looking at O.J. Howard. He's barely been on the field. Why is the red zone target going to him? Oh, but he's open, and suddenly they score. That's good game planning. That's good play drawing, too. So credit to them if that's what they're going for there. They got that open look, and he was feasting. However, I agree with all those guys, and the main reason I agree on the third one, Mr. Hilliard, it's because Hassan Haskins' season. He'll be that RB2 in Tennessee here soon enough. Someday, I'm waiting for it. I'm not going to give up hope. But no,
me and you agree on that one.
No one is Derrick Henry. No one's eating into his workload. Not yet. Give it time. Obviously, if you have Derrick Henry, there's a little reason to kind of maybe try and change, or like if it's dynasty more specifically, week 1 wasn't what you want to see in a lot of ways, where maybe you start thinking about trying to get a younger RB, more upside, less miles on the tires. And obviously you probably should have been trying to do that in the offseason, but there's also it's hard with a guy like him where every time he's really been healthy, he's been dominant. But at the same time, if you hold on to him for too long, it's just going to depreciate too much where it's going to be painful to trade him for what the price will be.
Yeah.
Mike, what are your thoughts overall on those guys Jordan was talking about?
Yeah, the first thing I did, I kind of did exactly what Jordan did. The first thing I did when I saw OJ Howard, I went over and looked at the snap count because yes, him and Brevin had about the same percentage of their snaps being routes run, but when you're in the game, I looked more at the percentage. I didn't realize exactly the numbers. I knew OJ's was low, but I didn't realize that Brevin's was, if his was at a little over 50%, but he ran 40 or was in for 40 snaps, that's a heck of a lot more routes ran than if you got a guy that's only been in the game for 12 and they have the same percentage. Yeah. So to me, Brevin Jordan is still in play in Dynasty. I'm not giving up on him. OJ Howard might get a here or get a little bit there. I also think it depends on the matchup. You know, Indy was hurt. Indy was missing
Shaquille
Leonard. I keep calling him Darius. They're missing Shaquille Leonard. They got a decent secondary. I think that's one of the reasons I think they're moving. You know, OJ Howard was the guy that they can move into that hole where that wasn't being taken up. But overall, I agree, and I am not a Taysom Hill fan. I have never been a Taysom Hill guy because he's always a conundrum in fantasy. So I'm not going to say anything else about that.
Yeah, the overall theme, man, is to just don't chase who scored the most points in week one because that'll lead you down a dark road. Not all the time, but yeah. Kind of be conscious of that.
So Jamie says Haskins and Ford are my most owned running backs on my tasking squads. Of course, Ford is one of them. He's a Brown.
I would expect nothing less from Jamie.
Yeah, I expect nothing less. I love Jamie, but I expect nothing less. So my take is, yes, a little bit of do not overreact. And my not overreact, is going to go in another roundabout way. You went with tight ends. You went with your Packers. I'm going with the betting lines. Right now, as we sit, this is my point. And this is why I said I was going to bring up the Green Bay Packers, Zach. There are 6 games right now already in betting that the spreads are 8 points or more. There's one game that's 8, and the rest are at 10 or 10.5. Out of those 6 games, only one of those teams, Buffalo Bills, won last week. 5 favorites of 8 points or more lost last week. Niners are a 10-point favorite. Rams are a 10.5-point favorite. Bengals are a big favorite, 8 points over Dallas. Green Bay is a 10-point favorite currently over Chicago. To me, that is Vegas telling us, do not and I know we're not all thinking about Vegas, but do not overreact to week 1. Because if week 1 was the proof on the pudding every single year, Green Bay would not be a 10-point favorite over a team that won. They're showing right there that they don't think Chicago is as good of a team as the winner. Seattle, who just won, is a 10-point dog to who? The 49ers, who just lost to Chicago. Yes, it was the monsoon. That's why I blame that on the monsoon. That's why Zach was saying earlier when he was mentioning the Chicago Bears players, we weren't giving up on Cole Kmet. We're not giving up on Darnell Mooney. We're not giving up on those guys for that exact reason. For gosh sakes, St. Brown scored a touchdown. Who would have thought that Equimia St. Brown would have scored a touchdown after doing nothing when he was a Green Bay Packer? Sorry, guys, I had to bring it up.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings. It's hard to even remember him as a Packer. He was so relevant there.
Exactly. But I think it's funny that, and the other, Buffalo is favored at 10 points right now over Tennessee. Tennessee goes and loses to the Giants. Now, I will say, and Zach knows this, I was never really high on Tennessee this year. That's why one of my bold predictions was about Jacksonville. I know they lost to Washington. That's another story. I think Buffalo is going to go out and trounce on Tennessee in their home opener. But I do expect most of these high spreads, like 10 points for the Packers, the Niners. There's some of these that I do think are going to cover, and some could be close. There's some that I don't think will cover but will win. But it's not a coincidence that 5 teams that lost are 10-point favorites or 8 points or more favorites right now in Vegas. So that's my gift wrapping the bow of do not overreact. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think a reason why Vegas didn't overreact, I think, is because week one was just wacky all around. You look at the Bengals and the Steelers game, that was a wacky game. Just a lot of with the 49ers game, it was a monsoon out there. So it's like it was kind of hard to get a gauge. A lot of these teams didn't have a lot of continuity in playing in the preseason with each other and stuff like that. So they got to get the kinks out and all that. So I think that's just all it is. They have an idea of who the good teams are going to be, and week one wasn't indicative of who's good and who isn't. And I just think they're putting their bank on the teams that, when you look at the rosters, are teams that people expect to compete. What do you think, Zach?
No, I like those lines. I mean, I'm eyeballing a few others too right now. I see the Buccaneers as road favorites. That -3. I like that. Against the Saints, I wasn't necessarily impressed with what I saw. I get MT. He was healthy. He had some catches. That's always good to see for the MT owners out there. But Tampa Bay, especially their defense, just kind of manhandled what was a questionable wide receiver core and just prevented anything from really getting started in Dallas. I know there was some concerns about TB12 and all that, but right now, -3 seems like a very favorable line for Tampa. I like that a
Mm-hmm.
lot. There's a
Mm-hmm.
few others that I'm kind of going to keep my eye on as well. Detroit is actually favorites against the Commanders, and I think that says more about what Vegas is thinking about Wentz and that freak performance in week one. Obviously, it's nothing crazy, but they aren't trusting the Commanders, and I probably won't either. But I might be a little tempted. I like them as dogs in a parlay, and I'll get into that more next.
Got it. Yeah. So now we are down to our cheat of the week, right, boys?
Yes.
So Zach, so here we go. We all were talking before the show. We're all sitting here getting ready to get into our lineups, figure out who we need to add, figure out who we need to drop. If we have guys, if we need to pick somebody up. I know Zach's not going to be picking up a lot of people, but some people that might be watching need to pick someone up because of an Elijah Mitchell injury or because of Dak, and you need someone. So, cheat of the week, Zach, you're first, my dude.
Back-to-back weeks, I'm talking about this guy. It feels great to be here. I told you, hey, he's being undervalued. And I understand the concerns. I understand why people were feeling it. What's up?
I say this is a pat on the back.
Hey, I got to take my victory laps. I got to. Because there's enough times where don't worry, I'll beat myself up too. I'll take my victory laps, but I'll also be the one to laugh at myself. I got it both ways. I got to make sure I'm a hard critic of myself too. But no, it's not about me right now. It's about Mr. Samuel. And it's about, hey, guess what? He's already on his way to that, wide receiver 40 finish. It's a solid start for that. Like I said, we're not setting the bar too high as of right now. I was looking and he's owned in 12% of sleeper redraft leagues. I would probably put a claim in for him. If you've got a relatively weak bench, you got someone you're willing to lose, that's a guy I'd consider picking up. Obviously, he's not the primary wide receiver. Carson Wentz is the QB. But I don't trust Antonio Gibson until Brian Robinson is back and healthy and stealing that job from Gibson. I'm going to look at some of these wide receivers. And hey, if Curtis Samuel wants to stay healthy for a prolonged run, he might actually reach that wide receiver 40 finish. Don't treat him like something that's going to be any higher than that. I'm not out here telling you, hey, congrats on wide receiver 20 on the year. No, let's lower those expectations. Let's tamper him down because it's not going to be realistic to where he probably ends up. But it was a solid start for him. Oh, and I believe, yeah. So obviously, there's some other weapons there too. I mean, there's some other guys, but yeah, I'm feeling Samuel as my wide receiver too there. And hey, if you think almost called them the Redskins, nope, not anymore though. The Commanders, if they're -2, or they're +2, if you feel like hey, they might win that game, maybe you slap a little player prop on Curtis Samuel as well. Because guess what? I bet the bar is going to be set low from Vegas as well. Because hey, yeah, you had a good week 1. We've been beating the drum on this all episode. Don't overreact to week 1. So if you think it wasn't a fluke and maybe Curtis Samuel catches a couple balls again, I bet his player prop's probably going to be about 24.5 yards. Nothing crazy. So maybe slap that in with the Commanders as dogs. I like that as well. But no, if you're looking for wide receivers, you had some injuries, you need some guys in the flex. I would consider him, and I'd consider another victory lap guy I mentioned on the pregame show on Sunday, Devin Duvernay, wide receiver 2 of Baltimore. He's probably someone I think will be more prolonged in regards to opportunity. But Curtis Samuel, Devin Duvernay, those are my dudes. Jordan, what about you?
I agree. Like we talked about last show, Samuel was a minimal investment, low risk. He proved to be a high reward last week for anybody who was courageous enough to start him. But also, I think moving forward, if he stays healthy, looks like Carson Wentz really trusted him. He had the most targets on the team, so that a good call by you, man. Very good call.
I appreciate it, but I'll say you can call it courageous. You can also call it desperate because I did start him in a league and my options were bleak. I had Duvernay and I had Samuel in my flex spots, and I left the week a winner and I left the week a happy boy. Was I feeling good about it entering the week? Hell no, but feels great exiting.
What do you think about Samuel, Mike?
So I do like Samuel. I've been cheering for him in the sense of, like we said last week when Zach brought him up originally, he was under Ron Rivera in Carolina. He got injured. He didn't get I didn't think he got a fair chance. What I wanted to see more than anything was just him to get a fair chance to prove if he was good or not. And in week 1, he got his fair chance. He got, like you said, he had the most targets on the team. I think if this continues, I'm not going to spoil your subject, but I think this might eat a little bit into Terry McLaurin's targets more than anything. Not saying Terry's not going to be a piece, but
Right.
if Carson Wentz if Curtis Samuel ends up being Carson Wentz's favorite, that's what I think could happen to eat into Terry McLaurin. But we're talking about Curtis Samuel. But Jordan, I know you have another very interesting pick for a waiver wire ad. Why don't you take it?
Yeah, staying with the Commanders receiving core, Jahan Dotson, the rookie. I mean, I know um, I was late to this party, but I know a lot of people have also probably grabbed him in dynasty leagues and stuff like that. But according to Sleeper, he was 55% owned, and Yahoo, he's 24% owned. So you guys should go out and try to grab him tonight or whenever your waivers run. He played the second most snaps and had the second most routes run in the receiving core behind McLaurin. And he was third in the team in targets behind Gibson and Curtis Samuel. So he's just a rookie. He's a young guy developing chemistry with Wentz. Go out and add him if you can. I think he played really well this past Sunday, so I only expect him to go up from here. Obviously, Curtis Samuel is playing well, but it wouldn't be far-fetched to believe that he could possibly suffer an injury. He's been kind of injury prone throughout the course of his career. And if that happens, Dotson's value would increase even more. So just go ahead and pick him up if you can, and be happy with those results.
Overall, Mike, did you have any thoughts there on Jahan?
No, I like Dotson. All I have to say is I like Dotson, and I am going to try to pick him up in the league. I just think that three-headed monster, it's gonna be tricky when he's gonna score and not score. But
Mhm.
I agree with everything Jordan said. Go ahead, Zach.
I like Dotson. Unfortunately, most of my redraft leagues, there's guys that were high on him
Mhm.
towards the tail end rounds of our redraft leagues. So I won't be that fortunate. But I'm gonna creep around, see if maybe someone just forgot about him. He's buried behind a few guys that got lucky week one and are showing top of the list on the waivers. That's when I may see if he's out there for me in at least one of my redraft leagues. But it seems like the common theme of this episode for our cheat of the week, the waiver wire stuff, seems to be young wide receivers with potential, some opportunity there. Mike, it sounds like you have another one for us. You want to share that?
Yes, I have another one, and it's interesting because he's going against my team this week, but it's also partly due to injury. So Keenan Allen, I don't think is going to play this week. He shouldn't play. He's got a hammy injury. I think he's going to miss a couple weeks. Joshua Palmer from the LA Chargers. Yes, Carter, the former Washington Commander, Carter did score the touchdown. However, after Keenan Allen got hurt, Palmer had the most snaps and the most routes run other than Mike Williams. Palmer slides right into the number 2 hole as number 2 wideout behind Mike Williams. I think, well, I know that the Chiefs defense is kind of weak in the back, and it's going to be a shootout. This game on Thursday night, the first game that Amazon Prime has on Thursday night, is going to be an absolute shootout, in my opinion. So the Chiefs are going to have to pay attention to Mike Williams, which I think is going to open it up for Joshua Palmer. He's 21% owned in Yahoo leagues. He's going to be a guy that you should go get if you have an injury at wideout. Like, let's just say that Chris Godwin was in your lineup and you don't really have a decent backup or you're kind of weak. You can go get Josh Palmer. You can put him in a flex in PPR leagues. I think he could score a touchdown. Other than that, another guy that I was looking at, I know what's going on in the chat too. If T. Higgins is out with a concussion, at tight end, Hayden Hurst is one of those guys like we were talking about with the Brevin Jordan and I would rather have, we were actually talking about this before we got on. I would rather have Hayden Hurst than an OJ Howard. If I have to go and I'm streaming tight ends, I'm going to pick up Hayden Hurst. Another thing that I want to bring up, and this is in homage to my buddy Zach right here. Trade target. I'm actually looking to trade someone away, buddy. And you're going to be, I know, and and it's CEH, because here's the thing. Here's the reason. I've already had people be like, oh, CEH is going to be the guy. He had 10 touches. It just happened that 2 of those touches were within the 5-yard line and was able to score. If you can find an owner that is high on CEH after week 1, I would be willing to trade CEH. Am I wrong, Zach?
Did you hear that background noise, those meows? I didn't even mute myself because my cat was in disbelief. She was saying, what the hell? Why would someone want CEH? And I agree, Echo. Why would someone want to roster CEH, let alone
I
trade
agree, but
for
I've
him?
already been asked.
Oh, you need to sell now and sell high. Ride that into the night. Get what you can, make out like the wind, and go. Because, yes, please, if I have CEH, come get them. Yeah, cool. You look at those fantasy points, sell yourself on it. I don't have to make the sales pitch. You're doing the job for me. I will gladly
Gator,
get
it
what
is
I can
never
get.
CEH season, Gator. It is never CEH season.
And I know Jamie, they said Mr. Scampers isn't in the chat tonight, but they're hearing Mr. Scampers through my cat Echo. And, Echo is speaking for Mr. Scampers, and all of them just can't believe that someone would want CEH. It's not a good move. Jordan, what are your thoughts? You You're
I,
out too.
yeah, this is the perfect time to sell him.
Perfect.
He's one of those guys, not as bad as the OJ Howards and all, because he actually plays a lot. But touchdowns not sustainable. The amount of touches that he actually got in a blowout win, or like, it's just not enough to produce. So yeah, if somebody's willing to buy high on him, I would sell him with the quickness. Get him out of here.
Someone,
For sure.
someone in the chat said, "What would you want from for CEH to or from CEH to sell?" And like, hey, if I'm selling CEH, I'll take a second round pick and a McDonald's coupon. Like I don't care. Like the price is low. You know, there was talks about Rojo. There was talks about Pacheco. You know, obviously, kind of wanted to hold out some hope. I trust Patty, and that's about it. Obviously, Kelsey's great too. I mean, but
Yeah.
it runs through Patty. It doesn't matter who the running backs are. He's going to get it done. And they could have Frank Gore could come out of retirement tomorrow and he could be their RB1. And suddenly, oh, it doesn't really change anything because there's still 1 yard per rush attempt from their RBs. You know,
AP could be the running back if you could get off the boxing mat, out the boxing ring.
yeah, if he can still get out of the hospital after that KO, that was rough. No,
That was
I
rough.
mean, I I have CH in one league. Someone hit me up about it too, and I've just been kind of letting him talk himself up. You know,
Yep.
I was just busy, but he countered his initial offer, and it's like, all right, I might wait a little longer. I won't pull the trigger before Thursday though, because I don't want to wait any longer and suddenly let reality strike and realize that he shouldn't have given me anything worthwhile. And I get you're not going to give up CH for a third or anything like that in a dynasty league. You're not going to give him up for um Spiller or something like that, a clear backup with no opportunity. But at the same time, if you see any sort of consistency in regards to fantasy production in return for CEH, and you're not starting CEH in one of your two running back slots, which, by the way, if you're doing that, you're already in a rough spot. But if that's the case, just take what you can get. Then you have some bye week options, you have some injury flexibility, and be content with that and move forward.
Yeah,
So
in a redraft format, I would probably, if somebody, I might sell him for Brees Hall. I might sell him for Travis Etienne, who had bad games. I might just sell him for those guys because I know the potential is there for them to get more of a workload than CJ.
yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I'm feeling that. Jamie says I sold Baker for CEH and a second. Now I'm going to sell CEH for a second and turn those 2 seconds into a first.
Good luck on the 2 seconds into a first. Depends on
Yeah,
how
depends
bad
on
the teams are. It could
yeah, it
be a
depends
tough
on who
flip.
you got. All right,
But
so
no,
do either one of you want to bring up anything else about waiver trade, anything else before we get into sign-offs?
just don't be aggressive on the moves right now. Week one is still too tough. You know, I'm always trying to think of when can I buy ahead for dynasty trades or even in redraft if you're in leagues that are trading, because I know it's not as common in that format. But, week one is a little too aggressive for either direction. It's more of a double-edged sword this week because you don't know for better or worse. And right now, there's a lot of excitement. And usually, if there's regression and you're trying to buy low and they already have him on their team, they were higher on him to begin with, and they're convinced he's going to bounce back that following week. So give it 2 weeks, maybe three. After week two is usually when I'm really starting to make my targets for trades or evaluate the consistency of what this season could look like for their fantasy production. But right now, it's just a crapshoot. So be patient, and I promise that patience will pay off for you the best in the long run.
I know a lot of times in the first couple of weeks of the season, there's a waiver wire guy who turns out to provide season long value, like a James Robinson. They normally have guys like that. I don't think as far as a running back goes, that guy exists. I know Najee Harris had a scare and everybody was about to run to pick up Warren, but I mean, you can still pick him up, but he's not gonna be startable anytime soon. But just try to be as discerning as possible. And like we said, don't overreact either way to whether it's points on a not sustainable workload or somebody who played terrible. Don't drop them too quickly. You got to give certain players a couple of weeks just to see where they are.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you guys. Don't overreact. Don't underreact. Get in, get out, make your moves. That's all. I mean, that's basically what we're all saying in different ways. So this is a great show. We had a great night. Jordan, why don't you start us off with sign-offs?
You guys can follow me on jarsenal on Twitter at jarsenal89. I got you on that follow, Zach. I'm gonna take care of that. So it'll be good. Catch you guys next week. Excited about week 2.
Zach, you're up.
And you can find me on Twitter at the Big Pulowski. Otherwise, not besides when I'm on here every Tuesday, I'll be every Sunday morning. You know, we're doing the pregame show for Going for Two. We've got Gerson doing the first half of it, talking about DFS, giving you the full rundown there, guys. He's really considering at all prices and just really sharing all the expert knowledge he has there. That man plays way too much DFS, and I'm just all ears to listen to it because I don't touch any of it. And otherwise, I've got Jamie joining me, and we'll have another guest with us as well. And, you know, Jamie just open invited Mike, so we'll see if he accepts or declines. But no, I'll be there. And otherwise, yeah, you can catch me around just crying about how rough my Packers looked in week 1. Mike, what about yourself?
So you can find me at Drop the Mic FF. You can find me here on Tuesdays. You can find me. I'm usually participating in the waiver wire article for Going for Two, which I wrote up. I got in late in the whole mix, so I wrote up Jarvis Landry. For that, you can go to goingfor2.com and find that article. It's a collaboration article with a bunch of our writers. You can also find me on Friday nights at Rumboys After Dark at the Rumboys Fantasy Network. You can also find me usually there doing some stuff with there over the weekend, Sunday afternoon, Mondays and Thursdays sometimes. For Jordan, for Zach, for me, what a great night we had, and see you next week.